endure as the end of the age and the Lord's return draw near. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 2. How will world peace come? From human leadership or from the Lord? Why will Mount Zion be exalted above every other mountain? The vision that Isaiah son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house will be established at the top of the mountains and will be raised above the hills. All nations will stream to it, and many peoples will come and say, "Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He'll teach us about his ways, so that we may walk in his paths." For instruction will go out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He'll settle disputes among the nations, and provide arbitration from many peoples. They'll turn their swords into plows, and their spears into pruning knives. Nation will not take up sword against other nations, and they'll never again train for war. Why did God reject Israel? Will God tolerate Eastern religious practices and idolatry? You, house of Jacob, come. Let's live in the Lord's light. For you've rejected your people, the house of Jacob, because they're filled with practices learned from the East, and they're fortune tellers like the Philistines. They cut deals with foreigners. Their land is filled with silver and gold, and there's no end to their treasures. Their land's filled with horses, and there's no end to their chariots. Their land is filled with idols. They bow down to the work of their hands, to what their own fingers have made. So mankind is humbled. Each human being is brought low, and you won't forgive. Who will be exalted on the day of the Lord, and who will be humbled? Enter into the rock, and hide you in the dust, for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. Will the day of the Lord also be a day of reckoning? For whom, and what symbols of human arrogance? For Yahweh of hosts will have a day of reckoning against everyone who's proud and high, and against everyone who's lifted up, that he may be made low. And it'll be against all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, against all the oaks of Bashan, against all the high mountains, against all the hills that are lifted up, against every lofty tower, against every fortified wall, against all the ships of Tarshish, and against all the desirable craft. Is there a lot of arrogance in the world, and even various religious traditions? Who alone will be exalted on that day? And the pride of humanity will be humbled, and the arrogance of people will be brought low, and the Lord alone will be exalted on that day. And the idols will completely vanish. People will go into caves of the rocks, and into holes in the ground, away from the terror of the Lord, and the splendor of his majesty, when he arises to terrify the earth. On that day people will throw away to the moles and the bats their idols of silver and their idols of gold, which they made for themselves to worship, in order to go into the clefts of the rocks and the crannies of the cliffs, before the terror of the Lord and the splendor of his majesty, when he arises to terrify the earth. Take no account of man, whose breath of life is in his nostrils, for why should he be esteemed? Does the New Testament also address the day of the Lord? Who will help us endure until the very end? He will also keep you firm to the end, so that you'll be blameless on the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is faithful, who has called you into fellowship with his Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Will we endure as the end of the age and the Lord's return draws near? You decide.